Tell me this is not scary. Blackrock, Nestle, and Bill Gates just teamed up. They teamed up to do something huge. The huge is actually beneficial to them over power, but it actually takes away from you. What am I talking about today? We're going to discuss how those three monster players, the biggest player on Wall Street, one of the biggest food providers in America, and water, along with one of the biggest food billionaires who owns the most farmland, who wants to take away from your food. We're going to talk about what they just did, their evil plan. Then we're going to discuss what Elon says about his new robot. It actually will blow your mind, not because it's something that we expect of Elon, and we know robotics are coming, but he makes an announcement that kind of is shocking even to someone like me who has been following this robotics thing pretty handily. Let's talk about what he says too, and that way we'll kind of understand where we're going in the future, the trajectory. And then we're going to discuss Congress. You know, we were hoping for recess appointments because remember, there's 135 Trump appointees still held up in the Senate and Congress. Guess what Thomas Massie just said? Actually, he was trying to help Trump. He said, you know, you think you can do recess appointments. Wait till you hear what Mike Johnson and John Thune, who are supposed to be Trump supporters, what they're going to do to stop those. This is mind-blowing. And then last two stories, we're going to talk about how, what did I say about, you know, Sean Pugh getting those Christian concerts canceled yesterday? They canceled in on all the cities in Canada. But I'm going to show you a video of what they allowed in the cities. The same cities that canceled Sean Pugh, the Christian artist, we're going to show you exactly what's happening. Now, the reason I want to show you this, and the reason this is a big deal, because this is not just Canada. This happened in New York as well. So you see it's moving along and getting closer and closer to your neck of the woods. And then last story I want to bring up. Starlink went down yesterday. Every customer, hundreds of satellites, actually thousands of satellites. There was also an airlines that grounded flights yesterday. Now, why is this a big deal? Is it a big deal that that happened yesterday? No, the big deal is this. It caused for massive chaos in the airports and massive chaos when people were complaining about the fact of not having satellite internet. Just think if we just 10 times that. Just think if it got worse. A grid collapse. What would actually happen and how people would lose their minds so quickly? We're going to walk through a few scenarios and again, what you can have to make sure you are safe. Let's dive into these stories today. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here. You know, it's funny. You know, people say all kind of crazy things and I read comments, but one of the main comments was, dude, take off your toupee. This is my real hair, guys. I know it's crazy. It makes no sense. I hate my hair. It just does what it wants to do. I don't comb it. I can't do anything with it. It just does what it wants to do other than it turns gray. So this is my real hair. I think it's so funny. I get the most comments about my hair and I think it's funny. So crazy, sorry. I know it kind of goes everywhere. It may be puffy, curly one day. If it gets long, it's real curly. But anyways, I just wanted to share that because this video gets real serious, but the most comments I get are like, hey, we love your content, but please just embrace your baldness. Dude, I'm not bald. This stuff is thick and crazy. So I just wanted to mention that. Now let's dive into the stories of the day because it does get more serious. First, let's talk about the announcements of water. The severity of water. You know, we've been talking about this because it is a serious issue. This was shared by an investigative journalist that dealt with water resources in the West and in some of these areas that it becomes very dangerous and important. Listen to this. The takeover of our water resources has begun. This is Bill Gates, Blackrock, and Nestle just quietly teamed up. This is not speculation anymore. It's actually happening. Bill Gates is buying up the farmland that sits on the major aquifers. Very, very distinctive buys on the farmlands. And guess what? The aquifers are right underneath. Blackrock is pouring billions into the water infrastructure. Nestle is still extracting millions of gallons while local communities run dry. They're not just buying the land, they're buying the access to the rivers, the lakes, the groundwater. They're investing in the tech to monitor, to track, to reroute where the water flows and who gets it. This isn't conservation, this is control. And if you remember me talking about this with California, regulatory bodies had done the same thing. They maneuvered their waters and rerouted them based on the lands that the city and the state and the big players were buying. It was rerouting the water away from farms and actually into the coffers of these big players. Now, why is this a big deal? Nestle has already been exposed for using very bad plastics. They've already been exposed for actually not helping people get water, but actually withholding water. Free water that typically someone would get, now they're bottling it, calling it purified, and actually they're not doing anything through it other than put into a filtration, and then ultimately selling it back for, I mean, millions upon millions upon billions upon billions of dollars. They did this in Africa, and they're doing it now in the States. So what is actually happening is the places that have the major water shortages, especially in the West, please focus on the story, because what is happening is you have big businesses buying the properties, you have big billionaires buying the properties, then they're buying the water rights, they're buying the mineral rights, they're buying every aspect of that land. So say for instance you're downstream of that property, what if all of a sudden, since they own the mineral rights, the water rights, and the land, they reroute the water? And they have the power that's been given to them by the government, so if they choose to put a lake, pond, or ravine or reservoir, they can pull the certain strings, and all of a sudden it happens. What if they want to tap a certain well? And wells are fine. I'm tapping one right now on my property. I'm in a very wet area, so it's a little bit different. I've got 3 aquifers on my property that I'm doing wells from. The thing is this though, if you're already low of water rights, and then all of a sudden you have someone like Blackrock tapping it, spending billions to reroute it, has every pension and has every business, 88% of the businesses on Wall Street has 3 biggest players, which Blackrock owns 2 of them, but Blackrock, State Street, and Vanguard. And Blackrock, of course, assumed 1, so now 88% of businesses will listen to what Blackrock says because they set the boards. Blackrock is over every pension in America, I think, other than like 2 or 3. So if all of a sudden Blackrock says, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to build this reservoir, do you think the governments are going to go against it? No, they're not. So you have one of the biggest billionaires in the world, the biggest player in the markets in the world, and now you have Nestle. Nestle has been known to drain aquifers, taking from very, very important aquifers that feed and water farms to then drain it, to then turn around and oversell it to whomever. Now, water should be something that should not cost anyone any money, because again, it falls from the sky, it comes up from the ground naturally that God gave us, and it's amazing that we live in what we call a free society and free country, where we make water not a right, we make it an earned value, meaning you have to pay for it. Now, there's been several states that have started to even go on people's property on wells and say, look, we're going to regulate what you're pulling out of your well. Now, they didn't pay for that. It's kind of like the property tax thing. It's amazing how we allow government to do this. Why do you allow it to happen? If you don't start standing up and actually calling these people out, like I was telling you about the police yesterday, like I've told you about some of these other situations, if we don't stand up, we're just simple pushovers, and they're going to take everything from us, and we're going to end up in just what I said, a society that is complete full of lords and serfs. Prime example, in Kansas City, they started a government-run grocery store. They own it, they built it, spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this property to make sure that people had free goods, because that's what they believe is the right thing. Listen to this. I want you to listen. This is from a local person that's in this area, in these quote-unquote food deserts, and the government put this grocery store here. It says, city-funded grocery stores trialed in Kansas City and has already failed. The shelves are so completely empty. The food that there is rotten, and most of it is getting stolen from by the community. It says it has been an absolute failure. At the same time, they're still pushing it in New York City. They're still pushing it. So here's what I'm saying though. Let's go back to the story, what I just said. If they're taking away from the farms, they're over the water rights, so the farms can't actually make vegetation, they can't actually grow the animals, and then also your water is not just a free right anymore, you don't get access to it without government intervention or big business intervention. Then what do you actually have? You have a government that's going to provide it for you, okay? So we see that government's health care has sucked. We see that government's Social Security has sucked overall, because the money you've paid in, you actually have not been saved. It's actually you're using someone else's Social Security. That's how it works. It's almost like a big Ponzi. And now we're allowing them to be over our food and water. Do we think that's a good idea? Are we not worried about literally food deserts and food famines? So when we see Blackrock, Bill Gates, and Nestle teaming up, I don't think this is actually for our benefit. Pay attention to that story. And then Who has given them the rights to do it? Your government. Who's given them the rights to do it? The people that's been bought off. Who's given them the rights to do it? Every aspect. City, state, national. We're giving these people too much power. You allow these states to pull away from waters, like these liberal cities and liberal states, you better get out of them. They're literally doing this to you. You can't catch your rainwater? That should be illegal, and that's against your freedom to not catch your rainwater. How in the world do we say that the government owns the water falling from the sky? That's absolutely crazy that we've gotten to this point in our nation to where we allow a government entity tell us we can't catch our own water. We are becoming pushovers, and we've built a weak men and a weak population to where now we're going to live in hard times, and it's coming. I promise you, you better be ready. Now, before we start talking about Elon Musk and the robot and a few other little details about some of those stories that we discussed in the intro, a word from today's sponsor.
Have you ever Googled yourself and literally your family members and information of yours came up? The question always comes to mind is how much of my public information is actually on the World Wide Web, on the internet where people could just access it. Not only that, think about all the spam calls you get, all the spam emails you get. I get several a day and have to block and block and block. That's where my friends at Aura, the sponsor of today's video, can help. Aura will help remove your personal information from data brokers and people searching sites to sell your information from and to identity thieves and scammers and more. Aura monitors your personal data, including your social security number, your house number, your phone number. And not only do they check it and monitor it, they will alert you if all of a sudden they find that your information has been compromised. Also, Aura VPN. VPN protects you on the internet, and this was with military-grade protection when it comes to Aura's VPN. It blocks all scam and phishing sites from getting your information in your accounts. What about an antivirus? What about a password manager? 24/7 US-based support. I get all this in one app called Aura. I do not want to leave myself vulnerable. We talk about it all the time. We live in a digitized world. The last thing I want to do is protect my home and not protect myself online. Check out aura.com/themacs today. You will not be sorry that you did. My information is mine. My social is my social. My address is mine. The last thing I want is someone else to have it. You can go to my link below, aura.com/themacs, and get 2 weeks free. That will be enough for you to see how Aura is an asset to you, because you're going to realize how much you're exposed online. Stop leaving yourself vulnerable. Check out Aura today. Link is in the description. Thank you so much, Aura, for sponsoring today's video.
That leads me right into the next story about the dangers of society and how we've just laxed ourselves to convenience to a point where we've given up on freedoms. There's a story of Starlink going out yesterday. Now, I love Starlink. I had Starlink, but we don't live our life fully on internet, so I didn't even know it was out until literally yesterday afternoon. We got home and did some chores, and then when I went in about 8:30 to watch Ryan Trahan, our kids were like, yeah, it's been out. We hadn't watched it today. We've been outside, but it was out. Listen, this is breaking. All 5,600 Starlink satellites go full airplane mode. Starlink was completely down. There was another alert that came across yesterday. It says United Airlines grounds all entire U.S. fleets, sparking fears of travel chaos from coast to coast. It says we're seeing just a minimal, small attack on Starlink and on a grounded flights. Both did not say why it went down. Now, Elon came out later and said that, you know, we're going to find out what causes this. SpaceX is going to work handily to do this so it won't happen again. That's great. But remember, if an EMP happened, the satellite internet was supposed to be what rose above. That 6,500 customers, listen to how many people, it said it shut down millions of people to where they were so upset that they didn't know what to do. They were actually going to cancel Starlink over just a few hours of it gone. Think if something major happened. Think how people would lose their mind. So let's go back to our first story. We have water and food being very, very sparse, and the cost has gone up. There was a report yesterday that said that through the Biden years, the 20 and 30%, even though it's went down some, we're still at about a 25 to 30% food cost expense that it has not gone down. Now, Trump has not made it go up more, but to be honest with you, these food providers has just kept it up. Why? Because people are still needing it. So if they're thinking, well, it doesn't matter if inflation goes down, if there's still people buying it at this price, we're just gonna make record profits. If you're not over your food system, then you've got to pay for it. You know, the reason I don't have to buy milk or beef or food, because look, I mean, I've got them sitting right here. One's fisting a liver, one's giving me milk now. That's just 2 of the many I have here. Now, you may not can raise cow, but what you could do is start pushing against these regulations in these situations to where we hurt our food system. And then on top of that, if we live our life fully embraced with the internet and with telecommunications and flights, then we're going to realize how big of a problem it is when all of a sudden this takes place. One thing I realized how it didn't affect me yesterday is because I really wasn't on internet much yesterday. I was out doing things I needed to do around our house. So my kids, they were outside playing ball and tetherball and just having a good time. It started flooding. That's the only reason they actually went in, and then they realized that the internet was off. What this should prove to us is we've become so encapsulated with technology and so encapsulated with convenience like flights and things like that, that when it all of a sudden we don't have it and have access to it, we go crazy. People went crazy yesterday. If you don't believe it, go look at what was trending. Cancel Starlink. Virus hits, blackouts are happening. It's like, what? It literally was 2 things. A lot of flights canceled on one company, and then of course, one internet service went down. But it made people go crazy. Now, 10 times that. What would happen? Just think to yourself, what would happen? Do you realize the gas wouldn't work without electricity? Did you realize the hospitals are running completely on data and wireless connectivity? Did you realize that businesses and your bank and crypto is all ran with internet connectivity? With the grid? So I always tell you, go back and watch my videos about what to prepare for with the grid, because what we just realized is if something happens to this on a bigger scale, boy oh boy, we're going to be in for panic, especially when it comes to these cities and these big, heavily populated areas where people are fully dependent on convenience and they've not done anything to be independent. Now, let's discuss what happened yesterday. I want to show you this video. We talked about Sean Fute, and they canceled all 6 events for him in the cities in Canada, dealing because he was speaking about God and Christ, about Jesus. They canceled every one of them. He moved them to other events. After they signed him up and after he sold tickets, after he got all these people there, they canceled every one of them. So he had to move them to different places in rural areas of Canada because they were scared of what he was promoting. Now watch this video. Now, did you see that? It said this was literally in Toronto. They shut down the whole city for that. Now, that same religion speaks death to us, to Canada, to the West, to everything that we hold in value. But they allowed that to happen because that was freedom. But they wouldn't allow for a Christian to do the same thing that has nothing to do with death to anyone, other than to ourselves and to be more like Christ. I mean, do you see the double standard there? You think this is not going to just keep on happening. Here's how this works. Did you see the domino effect that I've talked about? Did you see the one I've set up so far? We go from control of the food and water, and how, if you don't have rights to that and you don't have the independence, then you're not really in control. It's all up to the government what you get or what you don't get. And then you see how the communication element, the maneuvering around the country has been taking away. All of a sudden, if grid goes down, then what do you have? If you don't have food and water and you don't have communication, then you're a sitting duck. And then all of a sudden you rely on the government for everything. And then all of a sudden the government tells you, well, look, we don't believe in all this Jesus stuff. You've got to calm that down. But this other faith that actually hates you can come in and do what they want to do. See, all this, you know what all this comes down to? Weak leadership. Now, this wasn't weak leadership yesterday or today. Now, there is weak leadership still going on, but this is weak leadership over years upon years upon years. And in the West, we've allowed this to happen. This is not just an American problem. This is not just a Canadian problem. This is a West problem. And Europe is falling quicker, and then you're going to start seeing this part of the world fall too, because of weakness when it comes to leadership. All right, last few stories. Elon comes out and states this. He says, and this is a direct quote from Elon. It says, "I would be surprised if at the end of 5 years, 60 months, that's less than most car notes. So listen to this now. If we are not roughly making 100,000 Optimus robots a month, 100,000 a month, that's over 1 million a year, that's 1.2 million a year. In 60 months, if that does not take place, I would be completely shocked." Now they have already put robotics and certain things, assisting cars, doing bellhop stuff. Their marketing's been amazing on this. The new restaurants are having a lot more robotics in it. They actually said that they're building them, dancing and all this stuff. But here's what I want us to pay attention to. I always say this dystopian thing, domino effect. We lose all our conveniences, we lose all our freedoms, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, we need more time to work, or we need more time to do this, or we need more time to do this, so we're going to use robotics to do that. You watch, and Joe Rogan's already come out and said that he wanted UBI. You watch if you don't see universal basic income and universal food stamps, universal medicine start making its play back in America. You're already seeing the soft amnesty bills come back. You're going to start seeing a movement, even for the people who believe in freedom, to start retracting. And I believe you're going to start seeing them back things like this, because they're going to think, well, robots can do it, let's just let them do it. Well, then what we're doing is we're actually taking away from our jobs. There was a trucking company that stated that without robotics, they can make it in the future because of the dangers of driving, the dangers of communication, the fact that people have to sleep. I mean, Americans have to sleep, drivers have to sleep. They're saying robotics would handle all that. Some car manufacturers said, I don't know if we can keep making cheap cars because the labors have cost our workers. They have to have a certain amount of breaks, and we're having to pay them $30, $40, $50 an hour to push a button. And then we got to give them time off, and they can't work over this amount of time. But robotics could help that. BMW just put robotics in where they don't have to have breaks. They don't have to have a coffee. They don't have to go use the restroom. Now, this is not a push for robotics, but you see how easily it can take over jobs. It's already happening. They said the tech industry has lost over 100,000 jobs already in 2025. Now, tech is booming right now because of AI. Tech is growing. Nvidia just became literally the wealthiest company, I think, in America right now. And guess what? Nvidia, he said, I've made more billionaires through my management team and my company than anyone ever has done in history. He said, I've made more wealthy people than ever. We're giving bonuses of $300 or $400 million to start setting up engineers to make sure they can keep this technology going. The thing is this, though. One engineer at $300 or $400 million, along with a lot of AI that he's then developed for his projects, takes the job of 100 or 200 or 300 other men that would typically do that. So he said there's hundreds of thousands of men getting cut. And he said what's so funny is now we're starting to try to hire some. He said, but to be honest with you, what we will probably see is once they build the infrastructure, will there be a reason for men? Now, here's the big push. Everybody's been saying this is going to happen, and then all of a sudden the kickbacks are, but it's going to allow men to be innovative. I mean, look at what the ATM did. We thought it was going to take the bank teller. No, the bank teller did something different. Be careful of that. I think what you're going to see is more convenience brings more control. The domino effect that we've already established for this whole video. We have to pay attention to this because we're getting to a fine line in America where I think we're on the side of the plateau, the cliff. What's next? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? Are we going to literally just jump off the cliff? I feel like we're at the end of our empire because we're not learning our lessons. Right now, Trump's numbers are way down. Now, for Republicans, they're up still, but overall, he's losing a lot of his support because of this whole file issue. And the fact that no one's been brought for arrest yet that they've been promising. I mean, we've got all these stories that Tulsi just dropped and DOJ hadn't brought any of it up. The bottom line is, we're at the edge. Here, again, what are we supposed to do, Colby? First of all, you pray, you seek guidance and wisdom, and you serve God. I mean, that's what you do first and foremost, because the persecutions come to the Christians just as much as it's coming to the farmers, the independents, all in all. I hit all these narratives, so they're really coming for me. But you literally get spiritually grounded. Secondly, you have to start getting yourself in a frame, in a state of mind to realize that everything is not cupcakes and rainbows. Everybody in Washington is not there to help you. Prime example. We were hoping for recess appointments. I want you to listen to what Thomas Massey just said about what Speaker Mike Johnson and Leader John Thune are fisting to do. It says, I see some people are excited because real Donald Trump, he was using his Twitter handle, but President Trump can make recess appointments to fill out all the staff that was needed that Congress has been holding up. Congress has been holding up. Republican Congress has been holding up Republican leaders. Remember, Murkowski and Collins just came out and said they're not going to vote for somebody because they think he's too conservative. Congress and Senate is holding up these people that Trump has appointed over the last 6 months. Republicans, this is bad news. Speaker Johnson, along with Leader Thune, plan to convene and adjourn every 4 to 5 days to block Trump from making any of those appointments. So you see how they play the line. They make you believe they're working and helping Trump. The whole time they're actually stabbing him in the back. Pay attention. We want our leader to do well. We want our administration to do well. But I'll be honest with you. Right now it's not looking too well. And people's Main Street economics is not looking too well. You know why the market's going crazy? It's because tech is going nuts. They're doing all this innovation with AI. But Elon said, within 60 months, we will be producing over 1 million robots a year. Those million robots are not going to just be your maid. They're actually going to take parts of your life. And the parts of your life that make you money, that you need to survive, sadly, it may be the robot taking that job. And then therefore, in comes UBI, in comes government handouts, in comes government Medicare, in comes all this stuff. And we see how good they've done so far with the city-run grocery store. We see how good they've done so far with managing water and retirements and pensions and debts. Not good at all. That's why we're at the edge of the plateau. And the question is, are we just to fall off the ledge, or are we going to literally put our big boy pants on and actually start fighting back and pushing for freedom? Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. I know it was a little bit longer, but I wanted to get these stories out because I think this is a domino effect that if we're not paying attention to it, we're losing our water, we're losing our food, we're losing our freedoms, and all of a sudden we just allow it to take place. And one day we're going to look up and say, holy crap, why did we allow it to get this far? Because it was slow, methodical, and we never noticed because we were too busy. And that could be dangerous. Let me know your thoughts on today. God bless.